Welcome to Destination Fulfillment. I'm Rodney.
And I'm Janine.
And this is Life Coaching for Business Owners, Episode 3, Breaking the Success Pipeline. And in this episode in particular is for the business owners out there that didn't go that traditional route of going to college, getting a degree, working in the corporate world for several years, and then finally believing that they're able and ready to start their own business. If you listened to our last episode where we discussed changing I'm not thoughts to an I am statement, and then I can tell you that one thing I hear from many clients that didn't go to college either at all or right away out of high school is I'm not educated or smart enough.
Now this statement is a bit of a pet peeve for me. I really believe that the biggest reason this statement plays out in our heads is because of the story we've been told for the better half of the last century, that in order to be successful, you have to go to college and get a 4-year degree. It's absolutely bonkers. Bonkers! So let's start by debunking the 4-year degree, or the school-to-college pipeline, and how it impacts our concept of success.
Alright, let's start. First, there are many positions that you must have a formal education to pursue. Usually, these require more than that typical 4-year bachelor's degree we're talking about today. And many of these positions are things like practicing law, or medicine, becoming a teacher, or anything to do with science. If your title has ologist at the end of it, you probably need more than that 4-year degree. And you know what? If you knew that one of these things was exactly what you wanted to do when you were 18 years old, fresh out of high school, then I would have told you to go for it. Follow your dreams. That's what I'll tell anyone and everyone. Follow your dreams. Many of us, including myself,
And me,
didn't exactly know what those dreams were and what we wanted to pursue when we were 18. But we're usually only presented with one option when we graduate high school, and that's to go to college.
Go to college. So, in fact, it's estimated that up to 50% of college students go to college undecided, and 75% change their major at least once, most citing they want to pursue their passion as the reason for the change. And all that's fine, but what this really comes down to is financial success. And why are you going to spend the money to go to college undecided before you decide that what you want to do? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because all you're going to end up doing is increase the number of courses that you're going to take and increase your financial liability on these student loans that you're going to have to pay. And if we keep perpetuating this idea that you can't have financial success unless you get that college degree, we're just going to keep growing this wealth gap and doing irreparable damage to not only our economy, but our personal financial situation.
And speaking of loans, let's just throw out a few numbers.
Just a few.
First, the total amount of student loan debt in the U.S. is $1.5 trillion with a T. The average amount of student loans per student is $32,731, and the average interest rate is 5.8%, and typically that's compounding. So the average entry-level income for someone with a bachelor's degree is $50,000 before taxes. So if you're the average student that started college at 18, by the time you graduate 4 years later at 22, you're starting your career with $32,731 in debt.
Wait, so if you're good with numbers like I am, I swear I didn't pull a calculator out at all for this.
He is really good at numbers, of course.
That would mean that approximately 48 million people in the U.S. are currently settled with an average of over $32,000 in student loan debt. Now, if you know anything about that compounding interest, again, I'll bring this up. That compounding interest at 5.8%, that will double your what your debt is from what it started. That interest is going to double in size in less than 30 years if you don't have it paid off. Now, I mentioned that because Janine was telling me about some research you found, right?
Yeah, so I found this research while I was prepping for my notes for this episode, and I thought it was interesting and very relevant. And I shared it with Rodney, and I was like, makes sense, sounds like me. So, from LinkedIn News, they said more than half of millennials approaching middle age say being saddled with student debt is not worth it. The survey conducted by the Harris Poll for the CNBC Make It found that 52% regret taking out loans. Money, the magazine, notes that a growing number of Americans are retiring with student loans, and debt for borrowers over 50 doubled to 20% of the federal student loan portfolio over the last 15 years. And I'm willing to bet that by the time we're 50 in less than 20 years, that 20% is going to significantly increase.
And can you imagine making a financial decision at 18 years old? And can you imagine making a financial decision at 18 years old that's going to be with you for the next 30 years or longer? I mean, most of us, the only time we're making a decision like that is when we're buying a house.
So, yeah, this stat resonates with me so much because we're constantly told and tell children that if we want to be a success, we have to go to college. But we're starting out our, quote, success journey with an average of $32,000 in debt. And for me personally, when I entered the workforce, my student loan debt was more than $150,000 because of the compounding interest.
That is insane. So what are some alternatives? We all know that graduating high school doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be graduating with a ton of marketable employment skills. Although, depending on your high school's curriculum, oftentimes those extracurricular activities, you could potentially have marketable skills. One of my favorite best kept secrets is going into trades. Somewhere along the way, many Americans lost respect for trade workers. I'm talking things like makeup artists, construction workers, electricians, plumbers, truck drivers, and so many more different trades out there. These are often jobs that actually fit passion points for many people, and there are several ways you can get into one of them that doesn't include getting a 4-year degree.
Honestly, I wish I knew about this when I was 18 because it's probably the route that I would have taken. But one of these ways is to go to trade school. So this is often a set of courses that cost about the same as a single semester of college, but lasts from a few weeks to a few months to complete. So if you start at 18, you'll start your career at 18 and only have a debt of around $10,000. The average entry-level wage for a trade career is $45,436 a year. So that's only less than $5,000 than if you got your 4-year degree at 22. So then by time you're 22, with consistent work growth and experience, you could be making $60,000 a year and likely have the majority, if not all, of your $10,000 debt paid off. Additionally, depending on the trade you go into, there are apprenticeship programs that pay you to learn the trade. Taking this route actually allows you to learn the industry without taking any debt and starting your career even earlier.
So, if I understood you correctly, for about 1/8 of the cost and 1/4 of the time, I could get into a trade that would, statistically speaking, be financially better off than if I were to go to college?
Technically, yeah, that's exactly right. The truth is there's no one size fits all on the path to success. And the other thing I just want to throw in here real quick is even if you went to college and you got your 4-year degree, you can still go to trade school. It's not that big of an investment and the return is significantly higher.
We're all unique and we're all on our own journey through life, discovering along the way what the right path is for us. It can't be decided by anyone else though many people might try to tell you what's best for you. Why is this voice in your head telling you that you're not smart enough to accomplish your goals? Is it because you believe you need a college education to be successful? Or perhaps you dropped out of college and part of you still believes that you failed. Or maybe you graduated but work in a completely different industry than what you studied for. It might actually be coming from what you were taught by well-intentioned adults when you were younger. Parents, teachers, mentors. They were trying to choose your destination for you.
The important thing to remember when shifting this mindset is that no matter what your education background is, whether you're formally educated, you went to trade school, or you grew up going to the school of hard knocks, you've learned skills along the way that have helped shape you into the person you are, and you can use those skills to build your business and live your life fulfilled. When it comes to hard skills, say you need to know how to file taxes or draft a W-2 or fix a computer, you know how to research it, to Google it, or to outsource it and hire someone to help you. In the age of technology, you not only have the ability, but the responsibility to educate yourself to understand things you don't know. There are no excuses.
Yeah, personally, I dropped out of community college to go to trade school, and I went to 2 different trade schools in my life, and I got a total of about $15,000 in student debts through a combined total that, is paid off already. It's really simple. I mean, follow your passions and do what makes you happy. Whatever it is you feel that you don't know, it's one Google search away. The only barrier to success is you, your mindset, and the choices you choose to make. One thing we didn't mention yet in this episode is a military career. I personally have many members of my family that went into the military, and there are great benefits out there. They will teach you a trade, and once you've completed a full term service with the military and you leave, you have GI bills. If you still want to go to college, you could use those GI bills for traditional education, trade school education. There's many different opportunities there, and if you don't know what you want to do, serving your country is not a bad way to go. It's not for everybody, but that is another option that you could do. It would take you the same amount as getting a regular 4-year degree education. You get to, see the world, as they say on the recruitment posters, but you can really learn a lot about yourself going that way if that's something you think might be right for you. Go ahead.
I used to volunteer for an organization that helped some of our injured veterans, and one thing I heard from a lot of them when I got to speak with them was that they came back from service and they didn't feel like they had employable skills. They didn't, all they know is the military, and that's not true. If you think about it, they have tons of employable skills, and there's a lot of businesses out there that will hire vets specifically for the skill set that they have. And one thing I've learned also through working with this organization is that vets make great business owners.
Mm-hmm. Discipline, loyalty, hard work, and determination. I mean, those are some of the main skills that it takes to be a successful business owner.
So,
there's one more thing I'd like to say. Life is all about relationships. That, if you can master building relationships with people, that is the number one skill that will carry you through. Everything we do in life is about a relationship with people. Whether it's your significant other, whether that is going to be with a potential business partner, your employer or employees, if you run a business and you have to deal with suppliers, distributors, manufacturers, having the skill to develop relationships, having that personal connection to people, that is what's going to carry you through. And you know what? If you have people in your corner that you've built relationships with, when you have a question or you need help, they will jump over the moon to help you out. If you can build a relationship, that is the number one skill I can tell you to develop. Working on your people skills. That's that soft skill that is overlooked by so many different so many people with going to college, they don't really talk about people skills at all.
And I mean, I have to agree with that 100% because there are so many different needs for people skills, whether you work in an office, your business is run remotely, or you are face to face with customers every day. Like, you always have to have some sort of relationship with everybody that you come in contact to, even if it's the cashier at the 7-Eleven down the corner. Like, you have a relationship with that person.
Keep in mind, business by definition is a transaction between two people. If you take the people element out of that, you have no business. It's always going to be between two people that a transaction is being made. So that people skills, I'm telling you, that's where it's at. That is the one skill, no matter what you do, whether you go to traditional school, whether you go to a trade school, whether you just have a high school education or drop out of high school, whatever your situation is or was, you still have the ability to be successful. It's all about that determination, that work ethic, and just, learning those people skills. I think this is a pretty good spot to end it. What do you think?
I just have one more thing to throw in.
All right, throw it.
My one piece of advice on this is be genuine, because people can smell out disingenuous people a mile away.
Bullshit.
Right? Exactly. I mentioned this in the last episode, like when I went to USC, I had imposter syndrome like nobody's business, and everybody's walking around like, sorry, but a lot of people were walking around with a stick up their ass, or at least it seemed like that to me, because one of the biggest things we're taught there is networking. And what that really is building relationships with people. And me, I'm not the kind of person where I'm just going to go up and be like, hey, you work for XYZ company. I want to work there. Nice to meet you. I want to have a genuine conversation with people, and that's how I built some of the biggest and strongest relationships that I have. And these people, I'm even though I'm not in the corporate world anymore, like, I'm still in contact with them, and I feel very comfortable being able to send them a text, call them up, be like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? It's a genuine conversation.
Imagine working for a company for a year or less, and then you moved on to another stage of your life. But during that 1 year, you built relationships with coworkers that have now become great friends, that have your back. You only worked there for maybe a year, and you built a friendship, and now it's 3, 4, 5 years later, and they are still a good friend that you talk to on a regular basis. I have that in my life.
Yeah, I do too, absolutely. And, the same can go for your customers or your employees or, your vendors. I've met people who have run their own businesses, and it turned out that one of their vendors ended up becoming a business partner with them in a future business because they built that genuine relationship.
I appreciate all of you for listening. Thank you. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to our podcast, rate it and review it, share it with people you know.
You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Diorio Coaching. That's DEIORIO Coaching. You know, you can hit us up on Messenger. You can send us comments there.
Slide into our DMs.
Slide into our DMs.
Check out our website or send us a message there as well at www.dioriocoaching.com. That's DEIORIO coaching COACHING.com. We look forward to seeing you there.
All right, Rodney's rules for this episode.
Running a business has more to do with what's in your heart, your values, and your work ethic than it will ever have to do with your level of education. Keep that in mind.
Boom. See you
Mic
next
drop.
time.
See you next time.